Are you a writer who feels like you're always running from the call to do your writing? Welcome to Writer Talks. We're going to talk about that. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins here at Two Sisters Writing and Publishing, and every Monday night I interview the winners of our short story contests. And today we are so fortunate to talk with Otto Burnwell, who's going to talk about that very thing of running from your work as an artist. Welcome, Otto.
Thank you. Thank you. I greatly appreciate you being here.
It's awesome. First of all, your story, Visible Woman, is so great. You clearly didn't run from the call to write that awesome winning short story in our erotica contest. I love it. It was so good. I judged it. It was excellent. So, first, before we dive into that story, which is amazing, can you talk about that whole concept of artists running from the call to create?
Yeah, I think that the thing that I've wrestled with for quite a while was, first off, simply being a writer and considering myself a writer. I thought that was very pretentious of me. Certainly not to call myself an artist, more like a craftsman, building framing a house or building cabinets and hoping that things lined up well. But as people responded to the work, even whether it's a small group of people or a large group of people, I realized that there was something important about what I was doing. Sometimes it was articulating something that in a specific way that I could speak to, that other people resonated with, which if you go to a bookstore, you look and you see all of these volumes and say, how in the world can I be like this? And it's another excuse for you not to write. It's another excuse for you to do something else, rake the lawn or something like that. But it was that sense of finding people who really resonated with what you had to say and how you said it. And in my case, I lean toward humor. So if I give somebody a chuckle, a laugh, something like that, then I realized that was important. That was important to do. And for me not to do it was to dismiss the call, as you mentioned. And I think that we are called. All artists are called, whatever the medium, which in terms of creativity goes beyond the arts as the average person would define them. I think creativity occurs in just about everything, and that's what I felt that I should respond to, as opposed to ducking my head under a table.
Well, you sure didn't do that for this story, Visible Woman, which is about a teenager who has a crush on his science teacher and then grows up and sees her at the pool. Can you talk about can you talk
Well,
about that story?
well, it's something that I was aware of personally, and I think in talking with folks over the years, that adolescence had it struck us at the worst times, and as we went through the physicality of it, we discovered that we were not as anonymous as we wanted to be, and that people noticed it. And in this particular case, the teacher, and I'll offer spoilers but I hope it's the story worth reading anyway. The teacher finally has the chance, because everyone's grown up, they're all adults. There's finally a chance for the teacher to say that the fact that it looked like he was attracted to her came at a very tough time in her life, when that meant something to her. She was going through trouble in her own life, and the fact that this young man, who could be excited about any of his classmates, was excited about her, and
Mm-hmm.
that got her through this very tough time. And so
Mm-hmm.
she shares this with him, and he realizes that it really wasn't quite like that, and now he doesn't know what to do. How do you answer that? How do you shatter someone's illusions, and say that it was sort of a shotgun approach? And so how they deal with that, I hope, is the story that satisfies all the needs of both of them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
both their needs.
So I'm so yes, you really sugar-coated and said that in a very polite manner. So everybody, please go to twosisterswriting.com, winning stories, visible woman, read it yourself so you can get the real deal, because that was beautifully said, just like Otto writes beautifully. Okay. So his writing, your writing is very engaging, because as a book coach, I'm constantly saying this to people: write with your six senses, your physical and the intuitive feelings. So you do that. I want to just also show, like, you engage the smell, the feeling, the what are they physically feeling and emotionally feeling? What are they seeing, hearing,
Mhm.
touching, taste, smell? They're drinking beer, reminiscing. And so you just like put me in the story. I remember reading this vividly, and it was like, wow. And another thing you do is sometimes it can be difficult to describe people so that they don't just sound like they don't sound generic. So you remember Mrs. Nix as a slender, serious woman, maybe in her early 30s back then, with tortoiseshell glasses and a smoker's voice. That is such a distinct image. She kept her wild curly brown hair cut in a loose jaw-length bob, went bare-legged in belted shirt dresses, and wore penny loafers without socks. That is such a vivid image, and you can just see her standing in front of the class with, the science class. It's really awesome. I love it. It's really cool. So thank you for sharing this wonderful writing with us. And so how do you do that? Like, what is your process for creating something that puts the reader there?
Um, a, a lot of it starts with thinking about the opening sentence, quite frankly, and thinking about how to engage the reader. It's that classic storyteller issue. Hey, I'm going to tell you a story. Stop. Whatever you're doing, it's important that you listen to what I got to say.
Uh-huh.
And you wrestle with that. Um, and sometimes it comes right away. Sometimes it pops into your head, and you lay it out. But a lot for those kinds of things, it's long, hard work. I wish I could say it was easy. I wish I could say that it's a wand that I wave. But for that, even and I'll use the example of the teacher. Um, Thinking about that was staring into space, trying to imagine this person in the room with me, and what would do that, and also to do it in a way that was quick, so I don't bog down with detail,
Right.
because
Right.
you're ready to move on. You said, all right, you told
Yes.
me what I need to know.
Yes.
And
Right.
sometimes it's that, just choosing those things, and as a reader, you you enjoy them. You say that feels good. If it raises the hair on the back of your arm, you say, yeah, I've gotten it. But it's wrestling with it. It's laying it out. Do I believe it? Do I believe it? Does it mean anything to me? And the short, I must confess, I spent a lot of time researching women's hairstyles to get the right words. Uh,
Oh, wow. See, that's great. That's a great tip.
yeah, anytime, yeah, usually I've looked it up somewhere along the line. If for example, another story that I've been working on, someone describes uh, a workman boring them with the details of building a porch. And so I say, all right, what are the parts of a porch? So that I know both what they are and how boring they could be to make this person react the way they do to move the story along.
Hmm.
Research is sometimes it's boring. Sometimes it will give you the answer to a plot point or an emotion that
Hmm.
you're struggling to grab hold of.
Hmm. Oh, that's so cool. So another thing that you do really, really well in this story is that it's happening right now, but this grown man and grown woman are reflecting back on high school many years
Mhm,
ago, and you seamlessly weave the flashbacks in with the current
mhm.
story, which sometimes can be challenging for writers so it doesn't seem choppy or
Mhm.
disorienting. So how do you so seamlessly weave in the flashbacks?
Boy, that's going to be a tough one. Primarily, it's a lot of practice. For the longest time, I've written stories that either begin in flashback or progress because of flashback,
Mm-hmm.
because so much of what we do is recalling things. We bring things that we've remembered when you're in conversation with somebody. You're always thinking back to something, and you're trying to draw them in. Oh, do you remember when? Or I'm doing this because. And so it's part of a conversation. And a lot of times it is wordsmithing, where you just you pop in words and say, no, that sounds too, that's too clunky.
Mm-hmm.
And it is just continually thinking this is a conversation. You're trying to draw people along, and it's that idea of what worked, when do you stop worrying about it, when do you stop thinking about the transition, but
Mm-hmm.
you've made the transition. And it's
Mm-hmm.
wordsmithing.
Mm-hmm.
And just um, you keep writing the paragraph until you've moved from one to the other.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had a formula, because it would solve some other problems for stories I've got working now.
Uh-huh. So you write the first draft, and in my mind, I always envision like having a needle and thread and
Mhm,
like literally sewing up the rough edges of like hemming the writing.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
that image is always in my head when I'm making sure everything is smooth. So there's no
yeah,
jump from one paragraph to the next or one concept to the next. It's like some word, some phrase that draws things. So transitions are so important in writing. So it
yeah.
sounds like, Otto, rewriting is a huge part of your craft.
Huge, huge. And it's often that, and as you describe it, sewing as using a needle and thread is a very good image, because you oftentimes, using a word or an image or a sense or something in the paragraph that follows, continues to draw it along, and it feels both seamless, but it also feels continuous.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you start moving and into other scenes, other emotions, other characters,
Mm-hmm.
that if you got some touch point, I think that does give it that seamlessness that I think you're talking about with the needle and thread imagery.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, rewriting is constant. It's you know so many writers, famous writers, successful writers, all talk about it's not writing, it's rewriting.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing I took from Bradbury, Ray Bradbury, was that you don't rewrite a story, you relive it. And
Oh, I love
that
that.
it's and it's true. I've picked up a longer piece that's been languishing for about 5 years now, and it is
Mm-hmm.
reliving it, and then going back to what we said about earlier about something you'd said in a previous webcast about you tackling something, uh, an older work, previous work, coming to it. You're a different writer. You're a different person. You have so many different things going on that it won't be the same. And sometimes that's a real challenge, because you look at notes, you look at dialogue, you look at scene descriptions, and you say, what did I mean by that? What did I feel by that? Because it's the emotion and the feeling, I think, that well up in readers, and you want to make sure that you continue that, and you don't want to just drop in a line simply
Mm-hmm.
because hey, it looked good on paper then. You want to feel it, you want to live it, you want to know why you said it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Excellent. Okay, now let's get into your schedule. Do you write during the day, in the morning, at midnight, weekends? What do you
um,
do?
I have a fairly fixed schedule, or I should say I have a schedule that I know my muse will be waiting for me.
I
It,
love it. Who's your muse? Is your muse like a physical thing, place,
it's
spirit?
it's a person, and it's someone who either answers questions, offers suggestions, or will scold me with skepticism and force me to work harder. Usually, what happens is I will wake up in the middle of the night, and it comes on me. The watches of the night, I think, is how it's been referred to. And ideas will come to me, some that are bidden, some that are unbidden, and I
Mm.
will retain them, keep a notebook. In the morning, early morning is when I write most creatively. That's when I just let things roll. I don't try to judge it. In fact, mechanically, I will sit down with the an open page on my notebook, my laptop, and I will type in the title of the things that are uppermost in my mind at the time. I'll type the title and I'll say, what am I thinking right now? What am I thinking right now? I
Mhm.
will continue until something actually takes, and I will proceed to flow, and I will write paragraphs and maybe pages, and then I'll start my day, whatever that looks like, and then if I'm not working mechanically through a rewrite of something, I will pick up again on just pure creativity about 11:30,
Mhm.
and go as long as I can go, not without burning out, without
Mhm.
draining it.
Uh-huh.
And then about 3:30, same thing. I'll pick it up again, and it will continue. And it's just over the years have worked out like that. That
Mhm.
the best times for letting it go are those three times.
Mhm.
I can I can usually do rewrites throughout the day, but those are the times when, and every writer, every artist should do that. Find the time when the creativity flows, that you don't have to dredge it up.
Right. You have to seize it when it's there. Like just like
Yeah,
when it's daylight, you have to do certain things that you're not going to do once the sun sets. I
correct.
love that advice. Thank you. So, what's the most challenging thing to you about writing?
Oh, I guess to dive in, for me, it's the story. I can plot, I can create characters, I can create scenes that will accomplish the things we talked about in Visible Woman in in bits. But
Mhm.
it's the story. It's the, why am I telling you this? Why should you listen?
Uh-huh.
Um, Not that the writer has to come up with, or artist has to come up with the answer, but a question that will make the reader sit and at least ponder it with you. The reason, the reason for sitting down with a story. Um, and sometimes it's very blatant. Other times it's very subtle.
Mhm.
Some writers are a challenge when I read, because the reason for reading the story is not evident, um, and so I struggle to try to at least be evident. And there are readers who love that kind of puzzle, and so it's just, that's not the work for me. I like to at least say, all right, why am I doing this? Why am I spending?
Uh-huh.
And that's what's difficult, because sometimes I have everything, all the pieces lying on the table, but they will not fit together as a story, and so I have to put it aside.
Oh, okay. Wow, interesting. Interesting. So, why do you write? Like what calls you?
Oh yeah, I've written for as long as I've known. Aside from the time I said that I set it aside to work on a family, I think I think it's, there's a line in Job, uh, and where he says, "I must speak that I may find relief. I must open my
Oh,
lips and answer." And that is, and writers throughout time, and all manner of writers have said something that I can't keep my mouth closed. I have to do it. And that's the point. Is it was the answer. Now, like I said, having said earlier that writers don't need to provide an answer, we do need to pop off. We do need to speak when we're challenged, or when someone says, "Why doesn't anybody talk about this?" Um, you know, and I think to move to the business about the story that you've chosen. Um, One of the things that the reason I touched on erotica in this particular case was that, um, characteristically, it's formulaic, and I felt that there was more to be had in using this to address the issues that the characters had, but also just addressing. It's a way of tapping into fears, insecurities, and releasing them. I think I haven't had a chance to really deeply think through that,
Hmm.
but I know that by trying to tap at it from a slightly different angle, um, it it scared me. And another bit of writing advice is from someone else that I've addressed is write what scares you. And
What does that mean? What does that mean?
I think it's and I'm not sure, because it was not from a situation where you could say, all right, well, what did you mean by that? What do you intend by? But it was that idea of things that unnerve you, and quite frankly, that this story did unnerve me because at one point in the story, the young man thinks he's made a terrible error. And it was, and it's like he is so exposed and could have made such a very bad decision, a gesture, whatever. And it was, so that was a touch of that. But I think it's diving into things that make you uncomfortable, but they are meaningful to you.
Hmm. Wow, fascinating. So do you do that?
Right? What
Do you,
scares me?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
And it's the kind of thing that it now some of them may never see the light of day, but it does open the door to other things that I feel I like doing. Another a woman by the name of Barbara Nicolosi, and I don't know if it's original with her, but it's where I got it. It says, "We are, as writers, as artists, to wrestle naked in the public square with our demons." And that's sort of what it's about, for me, is wrestling naked in the public square with our demons, um, and people learn from
Wow, I think that's why a lot of people don't write.
it.
That's
Exactly.
terrifying. Oh my gosh, that's so because like that's such a hindrance when you stop and think, oh my gosh, what's so and so going to think, or people on my work colleagues or my clients or my neighbors or oh my gosh. And so overcoming that is probably the key to success to being a great writer because guess what? When you let that stuff up and out, that's the genius zone.
Yeah, and it goes back to your point about our avoiding the call, the fact that we're God bless the writers who can at some remove write things that people devour, and they do it with not a lot of emotion. Um, I don't want to say emotional destructiveness. I want to be careful because I know that writing is hard for anyone, whatever the genre they choose, and it's difficult. But I think there might be some who do it with a convenience that the rest of us don't enjoy, and I think that in any case the difficulty of that emotional involvement is what drives some people not to write. And I think a lot of people could, putting the words on paper, sharing their emotions, so exposing their thought processes and their joys and their hopes and their concerns.
Hmm. I love it. I love it. So, do you have any kind of critique group or writing group or community that you're in?
Not at the present, and I would love to. I've seen friends who've had groups that worked. I think I was in one a few years back, and being I think we all spent time either fretting about how our stuff was going to sound, or we were busy trying to figure out how we would write the focus piece ourselves. It
Hmm.
was very selfish, and I'm chief sinner in that regard. So it's not. I was busy thinking how I would do it better, different, or faster, or whatever. And so it wasn't as profitable for me. And I say from a development standpoint, what I have done quite recently is listened in on a group. It's a Give them a shout out, Misery Tourism, and they do a Friday broadcast called Misery Loves Company, and they have a group that reads regularly and whatnot. I've never read with them. I probably never will, but I have learned from them enormously. They have a way of sharing authentically and transparently in their writing. And there's some very good writers. I could never write like they could. And I'm far too insecure at the moment to let them or read my stuff with them, but I attend, I listen, and I learn. And that's the kind of thing I think is helpful to me, because I'm not there thinking how I would write it, because I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the life experiences that they're bringing.
Mm-hmm.
But it teaches me how to get to the emotional core of a story.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
think that's what catches a reader,
Mm-hmm.
when the emotional core of your story touches them and grabs them and holds on to them.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of stories go out there very sterile,
Mm-hmm.
well written, very I think timely,
Mm-hmm.
but they miss an emotional core of some kind. And so that's
Right.
what I do in terms of a writing group. But certainly I would love to be able to sit with somebody and have my stuff read, and somebody say, well, that's disgusting, that's terrible, that's no good. Or the otherwise, well, quite frankly, if somebody said this is wonderful, it makes me a little nervous. I appreciate that. What I appreciated about you is you articulating what you appreciated about the story, and the things that you felt worked. Sometimes critique groups will just simply say it's wonderful. You do a terrific job, as opposed to saying, and this is why it worked. This is why it worked for me.
Yes, yes. I drive everybody I know crazy because if they say, "Oh, it was good," and I'm like, "Well, what was good about it?" And they're
Yeah,
like, it's just good." That's not,
yeah,
I appreciate it, but I need some, solid,
yeah,
detailed feedback so I
yeah,
can know to repeat or not,
yeah.
or. So,
And to know that it was something you designed, as opposed to something you stumbled on, or something you can't repeat.
yes, right, right. So what are you working on next, Otto? Are you working on any books or poetry or anything else?
I have actually played around with verse. I'm not sure if I'm ready to call it poetry, but I've played around with some verse. There are some places that have accepted stuff of mine, which have encouraged me to
Uh-huh.
work on it. And what I've found is that it sharpens um, it sharpens use of language and the conciseness of language.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is not something that I came to alone. Somebody said, if you want to really sharpen your work and distill it, practice verse, practice poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've done that. And that's the big thing. Um, some of it is raw. Some of it I'm reading it, considering it in terms of what I've seen in this writing group I've talked about, and just trying to lay open the veins, expose the nerves, and see what comes of that.
Whoa, that's graphic.
Yes.
All right. Is there any last writing tip you'd like to share with all the writers out there who are watching right now?
I think I think one of I'll share three quick ones. One is sometimes when a story doesn't flow, I reduce it to dialogue, and simply say so and so said this, and in a bit of dialogue, sometimes a story will start to flow.
Mm-hmm.
The other one of the others is again something else learned elsewhere, is called it's referred to as the 20 bad ideas, the 20 bad questions, and you just, in as fast as you can, you put down 20 answers to the question, what happens next, or why would this person
Oh.
do this, and you put anything down. And
Mm-hmm.
one that always pops up for me is space aliens make an appearance, or space aliens take, or space aliens show up, because what it does is it unlocks it unlocks the groove, or groove is not the right word. It unlocks the brain from the pattern you're in, and that's really what it is opening up the creativity by breaking the pattern that you've set yourself, because you know the story, you know what you want to accomplish, you know your readers, you know the market you want to go to, and that locks you into a pattern. And so anything that unlocks that pattern, I think, opens up your creativity. And 20 bad questions, no judgment. It's just however awful they are, and it will, at about 16, I've found, is when I start saying, oh, that sounds good. I'm going to try that one.
Uh-huh. Oh, I love it. That's awesome. Those are great tips. Thank you. Wow, Otto. So where can people find more of your work?
Um, I show up on Horace Lee's Trash. Um, that's a curated website. Terror House, Yellow Mama, um, on Oddville Press, um, and Fiction on the Web.
Oh,
Our places,
excellent.
look me up there.
Excellent.
I'm on
Okay.
Twitter, Otto Burnwell, but O Burnwell, but I tend to watch and listen. So I
Mhm.
don't very few pearls of wisdom there, but
Oh,
it's a
okay.
great group. I like to participate with them.
Excellent. Wonderful. And everybody, please go to twosisterswriting.com and read Visible Woman by Otto Burnwell. It's excellent if you like erotica, but it's very tasteful. And Catherine and I have talked a lot about how our erotica contest winners are all very tasteful, excellent writing. So that's really important. So, Otto, thank you so much for joining me here on Writer Talks. You really contributed some robust information that can help writers everywhere master their craft. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I wish you the best in all of your writing. And his story will be published in our 2019 Anthology of International Short Stories, which is in the works right now. So stay tuned. You can also go to twosisterswriting.com and buy our two anthologies that have already been published, showcasing dozens of writers from around the world. So thank you again, Otto. Thank you again, all of
Thanks, Elizabeth.
you, for joining us for this awesome talk about writing, one of my favorite subjects. Please do visit twosisterswriting.com. And if you need help writing, I'm a book coach. I'd love to help you. My new program starts in July, where I take you through 6 months of everything you need to know to write, publish, and promote your book. And also, if you're a short story writer, please submit to our monthly contest. We have all kinds of topics and themes happening right now where you too could be featured on Writer Talks and published in our international anthology. So thank you again for joining us. Please give us a thumbs up for the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with anybody that it can help, and follow me on Twitter at the number two, sisters writing. No, the number two, sisters writing on Twitter. Yes. All right. Thank you, and happy writing and happy reading. We'll see you next time.